What are the hazards of letting self-portrait out of the studio to make its way in the world? Not the least among them is that it may be interpreted as a coded message, read as a text, or treated like a mirror, all its subtleties reduced to facts, and that it may be classed merely as a professional advertisement or some sort of a self-serving signature. In short, that it may not be regarded, still less appreciated, as an actual work of art that has passed through the imagination and intellect. Sometimes it seems surprising that so many artists are willing to take the risk. A century and more after his death, George Seurat remains nearly as mysterious as he appears to have hoped. He wrote few letters, had no intimate friends, and barely let anyone into his studio. Although he attended the meetings of the independent group in Paris, he seemed to have been an enigma to all the other members. Pissarro, who loved and learned from his work, found him cold and dispassionately rational. Degas called him the notary. One friend wrote that Seurat became immediately suspicious and reserved if one probed the interior self he cultivated in secret. The two-page document in which he set forth his scientific theories of art, mostly quite conventional, tended to fix attention on his methods, though little pointillist dots and dashes of color, so carefully measured and graded rather than on the paintings themselves. Seurat was regarded as a white coat, his art abstruse, his paintings available for a song. His death went almost unreported. Seurat fell ill on a Thursday, was taken to his parents' home and the following day and died at 6 in the morning on Sunday. He was 31. The cause of death was probably raging diphtheria, which killed his baby son a few days later. Nobody knew Seurat had a son. Nobody knew he had a lover. His parents met mother and baby for the first and the last time when they appeared at the door that Friday. His friends were amazed to hear that he had had a mistress at all, although he seems to have been living with her for more than 2 years. If they had bothered to ask the identity of the eponymous young woman powdering herself, a recently exhibited portrait, they would have learned that her name was Madeleine Nobloch. Perhaps they took her for a model, one of his performers sitting in her corset backstage. Perhaps they could not see it as a portrait, but indifference to the sitter's identity had already had a destructive effect on the painting. Seurat's pictures, it is true, do not tend to occasion such questions. Nobody looks at the great motionless dream of a Sunday afternoon a la Grand Jet and wonders exactly who these people are on the riverbank outside Paris. The couple walking the monkey, the woman daintily fishing, the show-off practicing his trombone, faceless, featureless cut-offs. These are not flesh and blood personalities, but elements in a modern Arcadia, along with the geometric trace, the clockwork butterflies, and the sweep of abstracted green lawn. You notice the reaming shapes of bustles and umbrellas, furled parasols and fans, the loop of the monkey's tail, the Euclidean geometry. You notice the dots. But There is one painting in which the dots have a perfect relevance to the subject, as in lyrical accord, and this is La Poderouse, in which Madeleine Knobloch sits at a tiny ornamental table before a mirror, powder in one hand, Donny puff in the other, poised between looking and dabbing. All of us Seurat's touches seem to imitate the dabs of this puff, as if he too was gently brushing the plump curves of her breast, neck, and cheek. The particles of paint radiate out from puff and body like a fine scented dust. Even the lead is powdery and soft, stroking her shoulders and forearms, dimpling chin and full breasts. It glimmers from the little mirror and from another hanging on the wall, in which a vase of flowers is reflected. Seurat has surrounded his lover with blossoms, real ones, reflective ones, and a wallpaper pattern that seems to shimmer freely in the air. Much about the picture seems strange. The size of the table compared to the woman, her elongated arms, the brilliancy of her hair, although only if one had never seen a painting by Seurat. But nothing is as odd as the mirror, which has a bamboo frame and open door like a cheap votive icon. Why is it so high on the wall? Surely the vase would have to be standing on a particularly tall piece of furniture to be visible at such a height, and the flowers themselves are uncharacteristically crude and cursory. The image in the mirror looks like an afterthought, which is exactly what it was, for it seems that Seurat originally painted himself in the mirror. One of the few visitors ever admitted to his studio happened to see this painting in progress one day. He recognized Seurat, but not the woman or the nature of their relationship, imagining that she must be a prostitute. He remarked that Seurat's face, rising behind this half-naked woman, might provoke well innuendo among the gallery-going public. Seurat took up a brush and painted himself out. In 1958, under X-ray, a ghostly image was found beneath the flowers, the head and shoulders of the painter. But 30 years later, after another X-ray, the results were deemed too illegible to be conclusive Seurat. Everyone agrees that there is a man's face there, and that the difficulty of reading all the dots beneath the dots may easily be imagined. Yet, science aside, who else could it possibly be but the painter? Why would Seurat even think of painting some other man's face in his lover's mirror? Now consider how much more intimate the scene would have been. The two of them together in that little room, a couple of lovers, a couple of parents. Knobloch had already given birth to their first child and would soon be pregnant with their second. Although they were never married, a double portrait would have marked their union, just as Rubens' self-portrait with Isabella Brandt and Helen Faumont celebrated both of his marriages. What a delicate touch, too, for Seurat to squeeze himself into the small space of that chamber as a camel in a mirror, reflecting the compass of their private world. Perhaps he painted himself painting the tip of a brush just visible in the mirror, or even the edge of an easel. That would deepen the relationships in the picture between artist and the model, lover and mistress, two kinds of a painter, both looking at themselves in a mirror. Or perhaps he was gazing at her, a complicated task, involving some technical business with mirrors to get a view of himself, looking in her direction and not his own. But worth it if Seurat wanted to imply beguilement, confirming the pervasive tenderness of the picture. It would also have directed out attention towards her, making us look even more closely at this beauteous young woman. If, on the contrary, he was looking at himself, then the whole picture alters again. His eyes would lock with ours, establishing a you-me relationship, getting up a conversation between us. It might be a kind of a dramatic soliloquy, communicating something about himself or her, or the state of playing between them. Maybe he wanted to appear watchful but protective, appearing indirectly as a reflection in the glass instead of imposing himself right there in the room. There is no variation that does not immeasurably deepen the significance and the poetry of the painting. Naysayers who refuse to believe that there was ever a self-portrait complain that the account left by the visitor has made it impossible for people to see the picture for what it really is, a satirical and unkind image of a prostitute. Seurat's motives are impugned, and all the gentle parallels the pictures propose between the artist painting the woman who is painting herself, quite possibly for him, are overlooked. Hard as it is to credit the blindness of such critics to the tenderness, the palpable affection of the artist for his sitter. There are those who think this is an exercise in mockery. Had Seurat appeared, it would have given them eyes to see these two souls in one work. Without the self-portrait, both remain traduced by disgraceful innuendo.